We kind of make the joke about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's like, and then one day the gates closed and that was it. The south side of San Antonio just seemed very poised for a great mixed use, lifestyle destination project.
From grain silos and tasting lines to apartments, shops, art, and more, new life is brewing for an iconic San Antonio landmark. In line with a trend of mixed-use developments popping up across San Antonio, the Lone Star Brewery is set to undergo a historic transformation. In 1933, the Sabinas Brewing Company constructed a brewery at the site, and it was a point of pride for the South Side until it was closed 60 years later. Since then, it sat empty. I'm Erica Zuko, and this is Commerce Street, a business podcast from KENS 5. We're digging into a massive effort to revitalize this beloved cornerstone of the South Side. The project is ambitious in scope, a whopping 32 acres of development, and it's set to unfold in various phases over the next decade, with groundbreaking planned for this year. We spoke with Peter French, Director of Development for Gray Street Partners, which is working with Midway. In our conversation, he spoke about how the new development will weave in the area's unique natural features and the nearby art and culture scenes. So first, I just want to kind of touch on why this site. What was it about the Lone Star Brewery site that was so exciting to y'all?
Sure. We've been tracking the project for, the last decade or so as it's moved potentially towards development. And as that market has continued to change, all the amenities, sort of all roads led to Lone Star. You've got the river improvements, the UNESCO World Heritage designation, lots of exciting things on the art and food scene, new living opportunities. The south side of San Antonio just seemed very poised for a great mixed use, lifestyle destination project. And certainly from an urban project development standpoint, finding 32 acres all in one spot where you can really chart out, a great neighborhood is it's really difficult to do. And so we were super excited both about the scale of the project and its location and all the surrounding amenities. It's just like checks all the boxes for how to create a great new neighborhood.
Just to give people the basics, I know a lot of the plans are still in the works, but what kind of is the overall vision for the project?
Sure. So, a true lifestyle, there's kind of a mix depending on which buzzword you like, but a 24-hour neighborhood, a 15-minute neighborhood. And so, those are both defined as a place where you really have live, work, play, all the things that you'd need for your daily life within a 15-minute walk. So we'll have living, we'll have retail, food and beverage, lots of recreation opportunities with the river trails and with parks on the site. And then office, and certainly, we hope to have hospitality at some point in the future. But so you ought to be able to do everything you want right there on site.
You kind of touched on this when you mentioned that there aren't a lot of places that you have this much space within the city of San Antonio. We've really seen San Antonio grow outward, and this is an opportunity to kind of build on what's in. What is the value in that, and why do that? Why focus here?
Sure. So, one of the great opportunities about infill development is the infrastructure is already there. And, you don't have to build everything from scratch, which again is great. We've got Roosevelt Park right across the river, of course, the huge improvements on the river, so a lot of public investment has already been made to make this project viable once we start on the private investment side. Unlike they call it in the real estate, a greenfield development or something that's out on the prairie where there's no infrastructure around it. We have cultural amenities and neighborhood amenities and active neighborhoods and associations, people to come live, work, and shop there already surrounding the project. And so it makes our job so much easier. And it's really exciting. And the response from the community, we've had several community meetings, has been hugely, very popular, very supportive. People are really, really excited about seeing Lone Star come back to life. Our leasing team has been commenting on the fact that even just, counting likes, social media follows on our new Instagram Lone Star District account, they're like, the response to this project has been huge and fast, and it's exciting. It really is.
I moved to San Antonio only maybe 2.5 years ago, so I'm still learning about the things San Antonians love and are interested in. But ever since I got here, there's been a fascination with the Lone Star Brewery site. People are really into it. Why is that? Why do you think there's so much excitement and kind of nostalgic investment in it?
Yeah, the brewery activity, or I guess the brewery itself started in 1933, which was the Sabinus Brewing Company back then. And so for 60 years, it was a hub of activity on the south side of San Antonio. People working there, obviously people coming to visit. You had the Buckhorn, and so every day we get emails or encounter people, who we're meeting with. They're like, I went as a kid, or my dad worked there, my grandfather worked there. We went for picnics. My mom did synchronized swimming. There's been people who've been touching the site for decades, and so I just think it holds this really sort of special spot. There's this nostalgia around it for people, not just from San Antonio, but from all over the place who have, fond memories of their own or of family members of going there and being there. And then they were sort of locked out. We kind of make the joke about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's like, and then one day the gates closed and that was it. And so everybody's been sort of, anxiously awaiting its return, and it's just thrilling to be able to do that. I definitely want to plug. So we've actually, as part of our activity on the redevelopment, we want to capture these memories and have people share their memorabilia and share their stories with us. And so we actually have an email address specifically to collect those, and it's history@LoneStarDistrict.com. And so we want to be sure that people send us those kind of memories and give us the opportunity to then figure out what to do with them, engage local artists to share those again. So it's really neat.
What did it feel like to kind of see the bones of these buildings? Are they still good? I know you guys plan to try to restore some of them. How is it looking, and are you excited about that?
Very. The adaptive reuse or historic redevelopment is definitely a challenging thing. We've been doing it with the San Antonio Light Building, which is right there on Broadway, and so it presents all kinds of interesting challenges, but opportunities. The brewery building itself and the stacks, and there's this whole collection of buildings out there, which are going to be something really phenomenal. And yeah, people just don't build things like that anymore. So, the project is going to be a mix of new and old. Our first phase will, include the original brew buildings, and of course the restoration of the stacks and that sort of thing. Figuring out exactly how those get used is still something that we're working on. But again, having these iconic buildings that everybody recognizes, it really creates an authenticity, and it's an amenity, obviously, that new projects just don't have. So I think it adds a lot of value.
I think I read that the groundbreaking you're hoping to do this year, phase one, into like 2025. Is that about right? And what does that encompass, that first?
Yes. And so, kind of touching back on the site, there's going to be some, what we kind of call addition by subtraction. So groundbreaking will first begin with taking some of the old buildings that we're not going to use down. I guess the newer old buildings, things from the 70s and 60s. And then, demolition, sort of, that begins in 2021. We'll probably be going vertical on new construction starting in 2022. And then, yes, we hope to have that first phase, which right now the plan is, 100,000 feet plus or minus of office and 50,000 feet of food and beverage retail and about 250 apartment units. That's phase one. And then we'll just keep going from there. But yeah, so the groundbreaking, it's kind of phased. They'll be going down, and then they'll be coming back up, and then they'll be opening buildings, and all these things will sort of happen in turn.
I know there are plans for this to be kind of a participatory project. As you mentioned, people can send in their photos and their memories, and there's also going to be kind of some community input into it. What specifically are you looking for there?
Yeah, so there's a whole lot of things. In fact, I had spent 2 hours with the Lone Star Neighborhood Association the other night, kind of talking about this. Local art is going to be something that's very, very important, and a public art program. And so finding and meeting local artists who want to participate in the project. engagement with additional stakeholders, whether it's the River Authority or the River Authority Foundation, or, local schools and charter schools, obviously the neighborhood associations, finding, local food and beverage operators. And then the early activations, even prior to having the buildings up and ready, will include, drive-in movies or pop-up events. And we're still trying to work out what those are, but those will be very local and community centric. And then, of course, there's the collection of the stories and memorabilia. And then, there's other soft good retail. We know we have a lot of great makers in the San Antonio community, and we want to engage them in the project, and just, make it a place for San Antonio. It was for decades, and we want it to be again.
I think what they're now calling the Lone Star District has been kind of cool over the past few years. The second Saturday that they started up is really fun, and you have so much art down there, and it's a little organic and a little more, what do you envision, what role do you envision playing with all of those partners and within that neighborhood? And what do you kind of feel when you walk down there, when you're around there?
Yeah, well, there's there's an authenticity in the Lone Star District and the Lone Star neighborhood, and that you can't recreate, but we have an opportunity to be both sort of ground zero for some of those bigger public events, as well as really a launching spot for the whole mission reach. That whole river extension, and of course the missions and their UNESCO designation, all are a huge opportunity for local folks and folks from, who knows where, from very far afield, international visitors, to have a sort of starting spot for the way that they can come and experience that part of San Antonio and all of San Antonio. So creating that central meeting point, I think is going to be an opportunity for us. And then with the buildings and the scale and the site that we have to, figure out what other public amenities or resources, whether it's, museums or venues for, community gatherings. I mean, it's something that's exciting to explore, but we've got a great opportunity to fill that, in addition to, additional art spaces for the showing and making of art. So, and music was something that kept coming up in this meeting the other day. And I know, there's a story the other day about San Antonio's 60s garage band history. And I was hearing a lot about that, the old kind of DJs and radio stations that existed back in the day. And so, really trying to tap into that authentic vibe of San Antonio and give it a spot.
What else do you think is important for people to know, or what do you want to make sure people understand about the project at this phase in the development?
Yeah, we have these guiding principles that we've developed for the Lone Star District, which is what we're calling, the neighborhood, and that it's going to be an all-day district, that is going to be for the people of San Antonio, that the river is going to be very, very important in activating that, and we just want to be sure that we touch as many local folks as possible, and they know that they have a place here and that we want to hear from them. And right now is the idea and the, sort of the very creative stage that we're in, where more ideas are better. We heard from someone the other day, wanted to talk about farming and farmers markets, and we're hearing, it's really neat who's reaching out to us and all the different opportunities that they're going to be to engage with the community. So it's not too early for any idea, big or small, and we just really want to hear from people.
And a couple of things that you mentioned when you talk about like music possibilities, art possibilities, farming possibilities. For somebody like me, acres and feet, it's hard for me to imagine how big we're talking about. Yeah. This site is really, really big, right?
It is. We have 32 acres, which is huge. And the first phase is about 12 acres. And again, none of these things make a lot of sense. Pearl, which is a comparison, obviously, that's always going to be drawn, started at about 20 acres, and they've been expanding. And then the frontage along the river, obviously, is significant. It's a big, big site. Yeah, I mean, we're going to be at this for 10 years, or more, creating this neighborhood. And you just don't get opportunities like this, it's all the time. So it's really
excited. You look like you're not like, oh God, it's gonna be 10 years.
No, it's
good.
Great. And I've been in the in the mixed use community creation business for a long, long time. And one of the other great things about a site of this size is you get to learn as you go. And, if you make mistakes or do something that you're not so crazy about, the great thing about 32 acres, you have the opportunity to do it better, the next time. And as the markets change and as new opportunities, present themselves, you can, amend your plan to make the neighborhood better and better and better. So we're thrilled. Something that came up the other day was this Rails to Trails project that the city's been working on to convert some of the former railroad lines down in the area into hike and bike trails. And so we're now looking at how to tie into that. But it's really exciting. And the activity level, again, that people are walking by on the river and using that Mission Reach trail every day. And, can we put kayaks on the river down there? They're the flume, how can we make this a really active neighborhood and make it accessible for folks to walk in and out of? It's cool.
For people who are really excited about this and want to follow the progress, is the Instagram and the website the best way, or is there anything else I should sign on to?
Actually, yeah, LoneStarDistrictSA.com is the website.
Okay, perfect.
And then the email address that I gave, history, is history@LoneStarDistrictSA.com.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Commerce Street, a business podcast from KENS 5. For more episodes like this one, including how the San Antonio economy is recovering from the pandemic, search Commerce Street on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or visit kens5.com/Commerce Street. I'm Erica Zucco with producer Kristen Dean. Thanks for listening.